What's up, everyone? We're at round number 9 here at Magic Pro Tour. 25th anniversary is just about upon us. It's me, Riley Knight. It's him, Simon Gertzen, the Pro Tour champion. And I tell you what, we are just about ready to go. We got Standard, we got Legacy, we got Modern, we got it all to give, and you've got it all to take. Let's get underway. Head down to the feature match area right now for our next round here in Minneapolis.
Oh, it's lazy helix! Oh my god!
Oh, easy game!
He didn't block and that was it!
What have you drawn? What is it? What is it? What is it? Ewing Jensen is your world champion!
Welcome to continued coverage of Magic Pro Tour 25th anniversary live from Minneapolis, USA. My name's Riley Knight. I'll be your host, and joining me, my good friend and colleague and the Pro Tour champion, Simon Gertzen. Good morning, Simon. Great to have you along for another round here of our team tournament.
Howdy.
We do have, once again, the split format tournament, Standard, Modern, and Legacy. We're going to be checking in with Legacy once again to kick things off here. And our two players, Gerard Fabiano and Yuta Takahashi. There's Fabiano, G-Fabs himself, a long-time Sultai mage. But this time around, he's playing White-Blue Stoneblade, Simon.
Yeah, Stoneforge Mystic is back in force. Death and Taxes and Stoneblade are definitely becoming more popular now that Deathray Shaman is banned.
Winners after the recent ban for sure. His opponent, however, on Grixis Control. This is not a Delver deck. This is Grixis Control, Yuta Takahashi. We've got a team of Japanese all-stars on one hand of on the right-hand side of your screen there, and on the other, Gerard Fabiano, as we said, Peter Ingram, and Christopher Fennell. Legacy is the format. Fabiano, Takahashi, the players. Stoneblade, Grixis, the decks. Let's get to it. Opening up with quite a start in Legacy. Look at this.
Yeah, both decks are effectively control decks, not playing super aggressive combos or creature decks. So we could be here for quite a while. Force of Will, Snapcaster Mages, Jaces, all the fun stuff.
This Grixis Control list, very much the spiritual successor to the deck, rather fondly called Check Pile, 4-color control. Deathrite Shaman obviously exiting the format stage left, spending a little bit more time with its family these days. And as a result, we see the green cut entirely, removing things like Abrupt Decay, Golgari Charm, things like that.
Most importantly, Leovold.
Leovold also.
Leovold was actually one of the defining cards next to Deathrite Shaman, being powered out on turn 2 and just making all these ponders and brainstorms so much weaker.
But these days, however, just the straight 3 colors now, and bolstering up on the powerhouses of the format. Of course, there's 4 Brainstorm. Of course, there's 4 Force of Will, 4 Ponder. 4 copies of Snapcaster Mage ties this whole thing together, and then fantastic utility cards, Baleful Strix, Kolaghan's Command, a couple of Lilianas, and the list continues. White-Blue Stoneblade, not much has changed since this deck used to be King of the Hill. Oh, geez, how many years ago now? 5 years ago, perhaps, it was last really at its best?
Yep.
And I guess the only real new technology you're going to see in this list, things like Unexpectedly Absent, Council's Judgment, True Name Nemesis are the more recently printed cards. Some versions are playing Brightling, which is a new card from Battle Bond. Fabs has opted against this card. But the key mechanic, the key sort of avenue taken to victory by this deck, it revolves around Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah, Stoneforge Mystic, if it's not dealt with immediately, as we see here, you are always threatening this turn 3 Batterskull. Of course, it does depend on the matchup, how scary that really is. And you're not so super happy to play against Grixis Control with access to 3 Kolaghan's Command.
Yeah, it's rough stuff if you want to. And we see Fabiano choosing not to put the Batterskull into play there in the face of 3 open mana. Also, it's not doing a huge amount against that Baleful Strix just yet. But that's not the end of the line here for Fabiano, because this white-blue deck is it's more than able to take different avenues of attack. True Name Nemesis, Jace the Mind Sculptor, fantastic win conditions here, and especially the True Name Nemesis in conjunction with something like an Umezawa's Jitte.
I think True Name Nemesis could be the key card if Fabiano wants to win this game. There's still the small issue of Liliana of the Veil, but only one of them in the main deck. A bit of counter magic to play around, but expect True Name Nemesis to lead to some counter battles.
In-step Brainstorm for Fabiano. Looks like he's really digging deep for that land, and he finds it to an island off the top here. And we're going to see Takahashi fetching for a Volk in response, or just not in response, but after this Brainstorm is fully resolved. I think it's important to note as well that we have earmarked this Stoneblade deck as white-blue. Technically is Jeskai. It is playing the third colour, red, for some cards out of the board. Not only 2 copies of Blood Moon, but also a couple of Pyroblasts.
I still like to call it white-blue
I think
because
so too.
if it doesn't have any red cards in the main deck, similar to mono red aggro with activations of Scrap Heap Scrounger, it's just cleaner.
Gives you a much better idea of what's going on here, yes indeed. Takahashi, however, well and truly dipping into all 3 colours. Lightning Bolt alongside Fatal Push alongside Brainstorm. So a heavy 3-colour commitment made by him here. He's gone hunting again, see Polluted Delta, and looks like there's an island inside, Guru Island as well, no less. Generally seen as having one of the highest power levels of all of the basic lands. And we'll move on now to his next turn. Here's Jace the Mind Sculptor. Recently let off the leash in Modern as well. But it's going to eat a Spell Pierce here from Fabiano, who picked up that Spell Pierce from last turn's Brainstorm.
We were talking about must counters in the sense of True Name Nemesis, and Jace the Mind Sculptor is certainly another one. Fabiano's just playing draw go. He hasn't done anything this game.
And it's often in situations like this you do want to find extra lands when you're playing draw go, but Fabiano's hand is well set up to contest whatever Takahashi is doing. Spell Pierce, Force of Will, double blue card in Snapcaster Mage as well. And we're going to see Snapcaster Brainstorm here.
That's not how you want to be using your Brainstorms and your Snapcaster Mages, but you have to do something. Sitting there with just 3 lands, you run out of patience at some point.
Can you tell us a little bit about the card Brainstorm and its role in Legacy? It is a centerpiece of the Legacy format, and there's a particular type of cards, the fetch lands, that interact with it in a very interesting way.
Yeah, so what this enables these super powered decks to do is you can play very specific answer cards that you will have in the main deck, almost like a pre-sideboarded deck against the metagame. And with Brainstorm, you see so many cards, but you can also shuffle them back in your deck if you don't need them, that this allows for more flexible deck building. And then there is the whole gameplay aspect of trying to time your brainstorms in a way that you almost always want to shuffle after it has resolved, immediately after it has resolved, so you don't even want a single draw step.
So we will often see the play pattern of Brainstorm immediately fetch away 2 cards. And it's not card advantage, Simon, but it is an incredibly meaningful way to improve the quality of the cards that you're playing with.
Yes, the average utility of the cards you are using, and also just this incredible selection of cards.
Fabiano finds that 4th land. Takahashi up to land number 6 by the look of things. And look at that. Cool, calm, collected.
Very different posture from both of these.
Yes, indeed. Here's a Snapcaster Mage. Is there a Brainstorm now in Takahashi's bin? I don't see one.
No, just the Lightning Bolt.
Lightning Bolt going to take care of the other Snapcaster Mage. Excuse me, there for Fabiano. And it's back to Takahashi now. Finds a Ponder off the top. That's a nice one. He needs a little bit more action. He's got a lot of reactive cards, although the clock now has improved quite considerably.
No, he was ahead in resources, but he didn't really have ways to push his advantage. Now, with Snapcaster on his side of the battlefield, it is looking better.
Doesn't like the look of those 3. Oh, yes, he does. Excuse me. Wow, that was one of the fastest Ponders I've ever seen. Usually they look at the top 3, and if they immediately dump them back on top, it's a shuffle. But he was just obviously just thrilled to see the top 3 cards. He's like, yep, set it, forget it. And let's move on now. Looks like a Brainstorm. Yep. Okay. And you'll notice there that Takahashi has not just fetched for the sake of it. He's got 2 fetch lands available to use. So we may see that interaction come up right here and right now.
I fully expect to see that. Actually, keeping fetch lands uncracked in this format is super relevant. You enable your brainstorms, you play around Wasteland, and your dual lands don't even cost you life to fetch out untapped. So there's really very little downside not to do it.
Often we see in Modern the end step fetch to get a shock land, so it can come into play tap, so you've got access to the mana next turn. But yes, in Legacy, very little need for that sort of thing. Takahashi going to continue to develop his board now. Looks like another Snapcaster Mage. Targets a Ponder. No, Brainstorm, excuse me. And if he's going to cast that, he's going to have to fetch. So away goes the Bloodstained Mire.
One of the key skills as a legacy player, especially with a Brainstorm deck, is to keep track of your duels, because you don't actually play that many duels. You don't play 4 Underground Sea, 4 Volcanics, but rather it's usually some combination of 2, 2, and 1. And you have to be careful not to rely on a duel that's not in your deck anymore.
Takahashi also has a relatively high number of basics. He's playing 2 islands, 2 swamps, in addition to 4 total dual lands there. So a pretty classic legacy mana base, although, again, I mean, maybe looking to ensure he has game against Blood Moon, against Back to Basics, and with good reason. Fabiano, 2 copies of Blood Moon in his sideboard.
Also to just resolve his more expensive cards under these effects. He's even playing Back to Basics himself in the sideboard.
Wasteland, another good reason to play Basics. So I really do admire the fact that Takahashi has quite strongly decided to ensure that he does have the basics he needs. Here's a Swords to Plowshares on the other Snapcaster Mage, and we're going to see the 2 other ones duel off against each other. It's been a lot of Snapcasting being done here this time, Simon.
Yeah, you can see why you want to play 4 of them in the Grixis control deck.
There's another one. Is that all 4 from Takahashi? It's definitely at least 3.
Thinking.
First,
Sorry.
first you got to do that. Yeah.
Cast.
Thank you.
Sorry.
That's fine. Yeah.
So, yep, Snapcaster Mage going to flash back a Ponder here for Takahashi.
Okay.
And I would say that for anyone a little bit unfamiliar with the Legacy format, this is a pretty good indication of how games play out. Very little commitment to the battlefield, much more interaction in when it comes to the stack and the hand. And games tend to be over very quickly or very slowly.
Yeah, and one thing that I've been talking about a lot is how the notion of pure card advantage is becoming less and less relevant in the board and tempo-centric formats like Modern and Standard. But here you can really see that each of these Snapcaster Mages has really generated a 2-card advantage. A 2/1 body is relevant on the board, and of course getting to Brainstorm or Lightning Bolt is relevant. So I think it's in a sense this matchup is pure Magic, like it has been played for years.
Fabiano steps up to jam and slam here with this Jace the Mind Sculptor. Just dumps it into play and says, look, mate, you've got to have something, because otherwise you're facing down the greatest Planeswalker ever printed. Now, Takahashi, as we can see there, a Red Blast in his hand there.
Forced to fetch a red source because he tapped Volcanic Island.
So he's going to have to go hunting with that Polluted Delta, go and find his other Volk. Oh, no, it's actually Badlands instead here.
He plays a lot of non-blue
Now,
lands.
was it Badlands? Was it Badlands that was named after you, or was it Scrublands?
Thanks, Riley.
I know one of them. I know you named one of the jewels.
I haven't heard that one before.
Have you not?
We don't cast Legacy often enough.
No. Jace the Mind Sculptor going to eat this Pyroblast here.
I'll spend the next 2 hours thinking of a rebuttal.
Another dual land-based slight. And now, a further fetch line. Takahashi certainly, I mean, flooding out, is that a fair way to say it? He's still got 100 cards in hand, so he's going to have use for the mana, but still, he's drawn a lot of lands.
Absolutely. Also fetched out quite a few of them, so his graveyard is full of those fetch lands.
Fabiano now with a Brainstorm. Draws 3, whacks 2 of them back. He has a Ponder now. So it does give him the opportunity to, a kind of weird way to shuffle away the top cards from the Brainstorm, but hey, he can still do it if he needs to. And Takahashi sitting on double Force of Will, Fatal Push, Flusterstorm. Plenty of interaction from him. He can even engage the secret hardcast mode on Force of Will.
So is it really being flooded if you can hardcast Force of Will? It actually looks like six mana is the sweet spot for his hand.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Force of Will into Flusterstorm, maybe a Fatal Push to take care of something like a Snapcaster Mage. And Fabiano's still sitting on that Batterskull that he's been holding since he cast the Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah, bit of a surprising line, for me at least, that Fabiano declined turn after turn to put better skull
to
onto the
shuffle it
battlefield.
away. Because he can fetch it back up again with another Stoneforge as soon as he draws one. So interesting that he's kind of holding a big old clunker like that one. Here's another Swords to Plowshares on the Snapcaster Mage. The best removal spell ever printed. Still as good today as it was back then. And now Ponder.
Fabiano's still waiting for that true name Nemesis that he really wanted to see.
Just something to force the action here, right?
Yeah. And we didn't really mention it when Takahashi pyroblasted the Jays, but main deck pyroblast is only possible because blue is so good in this format, and Brainstorm allows you to shuffle it away if you don't want it.
And this is what you were saying before. Brainstorm plus fetch lands means that if Takahashi is unlucky enough to draw something like a pyroblast when he's playing Mono Red Prison, you know, when he's playing Death and Taxes, he can then just shuffle it away with his Brainstorm. So it's a great point there. Because, yeah, it's a very narrow card, but we do see blue as one of the, the preeminent colours in the Legacy format. And this is one of the reasons. Force of Will, pitching Spell Pierce now. Spell Pierce not going to do a whole lot of work, you would think, here. But Takahashi is going to Flusterstorm back, and this is a great way to contest a second Force of Will here from Fabiano. Not that he can cast it. No more blue cards left in hand here for him. So now it looks like Liliana is going to resolve, and both players are going to have to start discarding. Swords to Plowshares hits the bin for Fabiano. I have to say, Takahashi now, we talked about needing to force the action, find some kind of hard-hitting threat, and Takahashi's been the one to do it.
And Takahashi has been the one to generate more value over the course of this game. Just the amount of cards in his graveyard on the battlefield in hand speak to that. That means the symmetrical ability of Liliana is just really, really good to have here.
Here's a hard cast Batterskull now from Fabiano. He knows he needs to find a way to needs to find a way to contest. That's easy for me to say. And the Germ token generating a little 4/4 Vigilance lifelink. Now Takahashi double force in hand. He could have stopped that.
He could have, but it would have been a 2-for-1 against himself, and he knows that he has enough lands to just hardcast Force of Will. So I really like him keeping two forces in hand.
The onboard answer to the Germ token in Liliana of the Veil, sacrificing the 0/0, and now Liliana the Last Hope as well. Another very powerful value engine. It's only been within the last couple of months that these two Lilianas can work alongside one another here. But I tell you what, you get this train rolling, and it doesn't stop. All sorts of value, discarding cards, bringing them back to hand with a second Liliana. And now, Takahashi just has to put the finishing touches on this game. How much damage has this Baleful Strix done?
It'll deal 7 more if Takahashi really wants to grind this out to the last.
It's done like 10 damage.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, Fabiano, I think he should have just traded his Germ token for the Strix. It's maybe not what you want to do, but I think it would have been preferential.
So Takahashi there activated Liliana and targeted his Baleful Strix. He didn't have to. You can activate the Liliana without targeting anything. You can just go up to 1, so I'll choose 0.
Next level magic. Destroy target artifact, return Baleful Strix to my hand.
Hang on. Whoa. And Fabiano didn't activate the Batterskull again in response?
I'm also quite surprised.
Does he not have any lands left to fetch?
That's possible, but there wasn't so much wastelanding going on.
No, that's insane to me that Fabiano just walked right into that Colligan's command, loses the Misty, away goes another Force of Will. Takahashi still 3 cards in hand here.
If you ask me, Riley, then Fabiano is just going through the motions here. This game is utterly lost.
I guess so, and I have to thank someone on Twitter who pointed out to me that one of the reasons that players will often be very slow to concede in a team game here is that it ties up their opponent from going and advising one of their teammates there. It was Josh Milliken who pointed that out to me on Twitter. So thanks, Josh, for that heads up call there, because in Fabiano sitting here and waiting, playing that to the bitter end, he's preventing Takahashi from going and advising Takimura or Fujimura.
Yeah, I know this myself. In the rare events that you're playing against better teams, you really want to keep all of them occupied in their own game so that they don't also benefit from joint collaboration.
Because I think 9 times out of 10 you would just scoop up the cards at a point well before we got here. But it's not enough for Fabiano to just do that, because it meant that Takahashi was kept away from his teammates for a number of key minutes there, and that's a great strategic angle to take there for Fabiano. But Takahashi, at the end of the day, comes up with the goods. My friends, we do have to take a break right now. That's game number 1 in the books. We'll be back with more live Magic from Minneapolis after this.
Up your game with Ultra Pro Magic the Gathering accessories. Find the best Magic art on card sleeves, deck boxes, playmats, and more. Visit ultrapro.com to learn more and find a retailer near you.
Welcome back to live coverage of Pro Tour 25th anniversary. We're in Minneapolis, USA. My name's Riley, joined by the Pro Tour champion, Simon Gertz. And we are going to check in now with some standard. We've just finished up with Legacy for game number 1. So let's move over now to our back table for Kazuaki Fujimura and Chris Fennell. We've got a floor report with Tim before we head down for standard, however. So, Tim, what's been going on?
Well, it's been a good first game for Team Japan. Kazuyuki Takimura in the middle table, his Jund Vengevine deck. It didn't have as explosive a start as some of the ones we've seen from Vengevine, but it was good enough to take game 1 against Peter Ingram's blue-white control. On the back table, we've got a mirror match on our hands, and Kazuaki Fujimura, he had Landmore Elves on turn 1. Chris Fennell didn't get his Landmore Elves until turn 2. That ended up being pivotal. It was Fujimura getting ahead on the board, Vinemares for Fennell, Galta for Fujimura. Fujimura took game 1. So for Takahashi, Takimura, Fujimura, they've all won their game 1s.
Great start for the Japanese players there. Thanks for that update, Tim. We'll move down and have a look at what's going on in standard. Looks like we've got a mono green mirror here between Chris Fennell and Fujimura Kazuaki. These guys both on Steel Leaf Stompy. We call this deck mono green, Simon, a slight black splash for this deck. Do you want to tell us about that a little bit?
Yes, it's almost the same as what we see from the mono-red decks, in the sense that you want to be able to activate Scrapheap Scrounger, and you're playing some Blooming Marsh and Woodland Cemeteries to do so. What that enables on top is some black sideboard cards, and those are, for example, Duress or Hour of Glory, things that green just doesn't provide.
Greenbelt Rampager comes down on turn 2 for both players after it's done the energy dance back and forth. Shy Little Elephant finally finding the courage it needs to take to the stage. And, well, a turn 2 Greenbelt Rampager is all very well, but when your opponent has one too, not such an impressive play there, Simon.
No. Now, Fennell can represent a combo trick here, blossoming defense, but doesn't have it.
And a Steel Leaf champion following up here from Fennell now. Very much one of the main centerpieces of the deck. A 3-mana 5/4. And very difficult to block by smaller creatures, although that's probably not going to be a key line of text in this matchup.
No, just block it with the 12/12.
Yeah. And you can see now, Katsuaki Fujimura, both of these tables or both of these teams, I should say, at 6 and 2. Tell us what the cut to the top 4 is going to look like, Simon.
Oh, that's a tough question, Riley. I don't know. It depends on how the top team of the tournament does in the end. If we had somebody that goes 14 and 0, just in theory, then you can definitely make it with an X and 3 record.
But otherwise, things are going to be very complicated. The fact that we do have a smaller number of rounds than usual, 14 compared to 16, and then a much smaller tournament because technically there are only like, 150 quote-unquote players because that's the number of
A
teams
few more,
that there are.
165.
165. And so, yes, the normal mathematics get jumbled a little bit here. And look at this. Fennell going from strength to strength. Greenbelt Rampager curves into Steel Leafs champion. And now, Golta, the Primal Hunger. She's a hungry girl, and I tell you what, she's going to have her dinner. Ronus, the Indomitable, the play now for Fujimura. We'll see what he's got.
Quite the exponential curve. 3 power on 2, 5 power on 3, 12 power on 4.
So next it's a 5-drop, 21-21?
Approximately. Yeah.
Approximately. It's back of the envelope there.
Interpolation.
I know what some of those words mean. So, Pima, Rishka, the Pima Renegade, not as opposed to Pima, the Rishka Renegade. Going to increase this Greenbelt Rampager some. And now, what's this?
Yep, Death Touch, fight your Galta, and took down the Galta cleanly.
Simple as that, just to get it out of here. And an Hour of Glory as well, also contesting what Fujimura is up to. And also, look at this. Hour of Glory cast on a god. We don't see that very often. Now, unfortunately for Fennell, he completely missed with the Ronus. Doesn't have any extra in hand, Fujimura there. But all the same, a nice answer for the Ronus.
And I think that was Nature's Way, the fight spell that we see in the graveyard.
Well, not something that we see all the time, but I mean, yeah, there's no Doomblade for them to play, so that's about as close as you can get here.
The green Doomblade. Except it's a sorcery and you need a Death Touch god in play.
Gets the job done all the same. We move on now, and looks like a Steel Leaf champion for Fujimura as well. He's going to continue to develop his board now. He still has access to up to 3 mana, thanks to Rishka and the Greenbelt Rampager. They do tap for green, thanks to Rishka's ability. And here is Golter again, just cast for 2 mana.
Okay, and that's huge. If Fennell doesn't have an answer to that, he is suddenly under immense pressure despite being up 10 life.
Yeah, just look at that. A huge turnaround here for Fujimura, dumping his hand onto the battlefield after being on thin ice for a while. They're down to 6, but now he's well and truly in control. So Fennell having to take a quick pause to think about what he wants to do here. Greenbelt Rampager and Doomfall in hand for Fennell. Some news from the floor, ladies and gentlemen. Fans of Channel Fireball will be very upset to hear that they've just picked up their first loss. The team of Stark, Utterlayton and User has gone down to Haruruya. And so there are no teams with perfect records left in the tournament. What a run, though, huh? 8-0. Just how you want to start your Pro Tour. Here's another Steel Leaf champion now for Fennell. But he's still facing down an enormous board from Fujimura.
And Galta is just so huge. You need to triple, quadruple block it to even stand a chance. And of course, Fujimura knows that he has the trump card on the battlefield.
So, Fujimura now. His opponent on 15. Certainly more than enough power on the battlefield to take that down to 0. It's just a matter of whether he can get across. In hand, Steel Leaf champion Vinemare. You see those cards there on your screen.
One option certainly that he has to assess is sacrificing the Hash-Up Oasis here, just to make Galta lethal on its own.
So you can hear the players discussing their options here. Often an advantage for the non-English teams at any event like this, so they can have rather open discussions about what's going on. Bit of philosophy there from Chris Fennell, the 21st century philosopher. He and Fabiano in a brief conference about how to play this one forward. And Fujimura is certainly taking his time in pressing on with his game plan. As we said, Steel Leaf champion Vinemare in hand here. What are the options that he's weighing up here, Simon?
I'm honestly not so sure. It almost looks like they're discussing in detail whether to attack with more than just Galta. I think the fact that Galta is coming in is basically for sure.
So here comes the attack now from Fujimura. Fennell and Fabiano still deep in conversation here. Fujimura, Takahashi, and Takimura, of course, still well and truly ahead. Look at that scoreboard. They've won all the game ones here. And so now Fujimura's like, hey, I've attacked. You want to do anything about this, my friend? They're just still chatting. It's not a good chat.
We're at 15.
So, Fennell now forced to line up some blocks. This is a lethal attack otherwise. There's no obvious way to play this one out here, son.
No, and you can hear Fabiano cracking some jokes there. Bluff and take it all. It's maybe not.
Yeah, probably not the winning line there.
Yeah, the question is if there is really a winning line. What you can definitely do here is to just let the Galta through and accept that you'll be on 3 for the rest of the game. But at least you're giving yourself one more out to draw something to deal with the 12-12.
Fortunately, there aren't a lot of answers to it. Of course, this is a post-board game, so we do have copies of Hour of Glory, and as we saw, Nature's Way, although it doesn't look like Fennell is playing any of those cards.
Another Hour of Glory and 2 left in the whole deck.
I mean, all of the decisions are going to end up in me losing, so you're wasting my...
Okay, so it looks like the decision has been made after that ongoing conference call. It looks like we are going to finally have some action. Fennell lining up these blocks.
The Gator Mage deciding that Fabiano was not helping him out of this tricky spot.
He's like, just go and do something else, my friend. Now, I think we're actually getting the legacy game started now, so Fabiano's had to return for that. And so now the blocks are successfully assigned, and Galta comes across for a big chunk of damage there. Fennell takes 12, I should say. Greenbelt Rampage are the only card left on his side of the battlefield, and nothing doing for Chris Fennell. He has to take the loss on the chin. Fujimura Takahashi, Katsuaki Fujimura, very, very tidy win from him, 2-0, and we move now across to Modern. Simon, this is a matchup that we've seen previously. We saw it last round with Gabriel Nassif playing white-blue control, and this time it's Peter Ingram on white-blue control, and his opponent here, Katsuyuki Takimura, playing once again Vengevine. A little bit different, though. We do have green in the main deck.
It is a rematch almost of last round. This time it is the version with Viscera Seer and a few one-offs, Grimflayer, Grizzly Salvage. But we'll have to see if blue-white can, I want to say, miraculously win the 2 sideboard game.
Do you think it's that bad, really?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, all right. Tell us. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm very interested to know why, because I think it's a little bit closer than you're making it out. So what is it that puts the Vengevine deck so far ahead of white-blue control?
I think it's really this explosiveness that is so difficult to contain. If you have a mana leak, but it doesn't really matter whether you counter your opponent's spells, that's just really problematic. You can't even counter a Cathartic Reunion like against Dredge. Here, it's the 1-drop that will dump something in the graveyard, and then you just start going off, more or less. Now, I might be wrong. This is a super new matchup in Modern. I don't claim that I know all of this, but just from the the context of how these games have been going, I would much rather be on the Jund Vengevine side.
Let's talk about what it means to play a Jund Vengevine rather than a red-black one we said before. But before we do that, I want to talk about this white-blue control deck. A very different approach taken by Peter Ingram here, who is playing 4 copies of Terminus, in addition to the 3 copies of Jace the Mind Sculptor. A fantastic combo there. But it's Opt as a 3 of that means that setting up a Terminus during your opponent's turn is something that can and will happen.
Yeah, and I ran across quite a few of these deck lists. I almost wanted to call them white-blue miracles because you are relying heavily on Terminus over, for example, Supreme Verdicts or Wrath of Gods. Sure, let's say one Supreme Verdict, but it's not the main. It's not the main strategy of this blue-white control deck.
And there are plenty of ways too for Ingram to make the most of the 4 copies of Terminus that he's playing. Not only Serum Visions is a card that can set it up. Opt, as I said, casting in your opponent's turn. But the other card you see there on the screen on the battlefield, Search for Azcanta. Another way to check the top of the library. Oh, it's a Terminus. Of course it is. Perfect. Leave it there. Wipe your board. 1 mana. Easy game. Let's go back and have a look and a talk about Jund Vengevine here. You can see Takimura playing an Overgrown Tomb and multiple green cards in the main deck that he intends to cast. This is opposed to the black-red version, which plays Vengevine, but no ways to cast it. Grizzly Salvage, Grimflayer, Destructive Revelry, these are all cards that mean that the green commitment is a lot heavier here.
Yes, although, to be fair, you can sometimes cast your Vengevine. It's still not your primary way of getting Vengevines onto
Not your plan A by any means.
So what this gives you is a few more green cards in the main deck, and you benefit from, for example, being able to flashback Ancient Grudge or cast Destructive Revelry from the sideboard.
Things have gone okay for Ingram so far, I have to say, however. Turn 1 Serum Visions, turn 2 Search for Azcanta, but it's mainly what Takimura is not doing that means that Ingram's having a better time of things. Although, he'll be feeling the pressure. Let's remind ourselves of something here. Takimura is playing for the match with Fujimura winning game number 2, and therefore his match. If Takimura locks this one up, that's it. That's the ball game.
Look at the bottom of the screen, Riley. The dots are all on the Japanese side. It's also, I mean, it depends on you as a player, but it is frustrating if you just see losses everywhere.
Yeah.
It's difficult to rally back and to keep thinking, I'm gonna win two straight. Fabiano is gonna win 2 straight. We got this, because it's just getting less and less likely.
Yeah, it's the uphill battle becomes a real psychological roadblock, and good players and great players will overcome that. But it is not to be sneezed at. It's something that you do need to remember the enormous psychological pressure these players are under right now. Especially when faced off against someone like Takimura, Pro Tour champion.
Yeah, and you said something really important about the Vengevine deck not doing something, and that is actually, I think, probably the key to this matchup. It's not about who wins when both decks are operating at maximum efficiency, but it's about what can we actually expect on average a reasonable amount of time from the Jund Vengevine deck.
That's actually, it's funny, a little thing to think about. If both players could, stack their decks to have the perfect start, Ingram would be still in a great spot because he can just put a Terminus wherever he wants.
Of course, yes.
But I think the average case scenario, as you say, it's a good point. The Vengevine deck is probably in a better spot.
And that's what I meant, because just if you put yourself in the blue-white control position and you just know that there are 4 Vengevines and 4 bridges from below in your opponent's deck, you're already not feeling too confident.
Here's a V-click. Look at this. Putting a turn to blah, blah, blah. I'm going to try that. I'm going to do that one from the top there, Simon. Popping a Terminus on the bottom of his library, drawing a fresh card, and now we're going to see him line up a block. Ingram is desperate for this V-click to die because it would exile the 2 copies of Bridge from below that Takimura has, and would really solve some of the problems. But it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen, Simon, because of the Viscera, Takimura has a way to activate the bridges or trigger the bridge at instant speed and prevent the V-click from dying.
And Ingram actually top-decked a Surgical Extraction.
Oh, whoa, look at this, says Ingram. This is a great start. So, we've got now
2 bridge triggers on the stack.
After the Viscera has died. It's been sacrificed.
And a Scry trigger.
Yeah. So, surgical extraction.
And now what Takimura should do is probably sacrifice the Viserys here in response. Because I think he wants 2 zombies rather than killing the opposing Vendilion click.
So Takimura now. Looks like he's considering the play that you mentioned there. An extra scry trigger. Surgical extraction, a nice one though. Nice precise card to bring in against these graveyard decks. Although Rest in Peace is just the ultimate answer. Although we were discussing this earlier, Simon, Rest in Peace may be just, as insane as it sounds, a touch too slow.
In some of the games we've seen, especially yesterday from Nagro, the Vengevine deck often had 6 power or more on the battlefield on turn 1. And I'm starting to think that this is not the usual case.
So now, Surgical Extraction resolves after 2 zombies enter the battlefield thanks to the Viserys triggers of the bridge from below there. And we'll see now what Takimura is working with. As you can see, his hand, Hangerback Walker, Faithless Looting, Collective Brutality there. So nothing for Surgical to find there, but removing those bridges from the equation altogether, that is a significant step forward for Peter Ingram here.
Absolutely. And some people might be expecting 4 zombies to show up, but Bridge from Below is actually even trickier than that. Even though it triggered from both of these creatures going to the graveyard, it only gives you the zombies if it's still in the graveyard when the trigger resolves.
Is that right?
It might not have been the most elegantly designed card in the history of Magic.
I mean, I love it. It's super, super weird. But yeah, counterintuitive sort of situation there. So now we see the triggers from the Stitcher supplier and finally the Scry from having it.
2 new Vengevines.
Oh no. Oh no, says Peter Ingram. And Takimura continues his turn. Ingram takes 2, Vendilion Click survives. So ultimately Ingram was able to get rid of those bridges. And so now, Takimura, considering what he's up to next. Collective Brutality is a really nice one. He's playing a 1-2 split between the main and the board. I love this card in Modern. I love its position. It's very difficult to have the card do nothing. And against certain decks, for example, Burn, it's just so, so good.
It did get a bit weaker now that the premier aggro decks of the format are looking a bit different, I think.
Sure.
Still quite good against humans, but if you play against Hollow One, you're not super happy about Collective Brutality.
No, I mean, you know, it's never terrific in that situation. But you know, you can snipe something like a Flameblade Adept. You can get a Goblin Lore out of their hand or something like that. But I agree. In broad strokes, I agree with you. It's certainly its stocks have dwindled.
Yeah, and that's why I think, for example, playing 1 in the main deck is very reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
If you put 3 in your main deck in Modern right now, I think you're running into too many bad matchups, or matchups where it's not at its best.
Yeah, for sure. Takimura certainly taking his time over this decision. He's got to decide between Faithless Looting, Collective Brutality, or a Hangerback Walker for 1. Not really what Hangerback Walker is in the deck for, though, Simon. He's not able to get those Vengevines back. Not that they do too much good now, because combat, of course, has already passed.
Vengevine is a card that you can easily get back next turn.
So here we go. It is going to be the Collective Brutality, discarding Faithless Looting in order to escalate. -2/-2 on the Vendilion Click, and revealing the hand of Ingram. So Takimura can take his pick here. Serum Visions, Terminus, or Path to Exile. You'll remember that Ingram has a Terminus on the bottom of his library. A double Terminus there.
Takimura is enabling Search for Escanta to flip with this play.
Ah, discarding a card, yeah, right.
And the Vendilion Click going to the graveyard.
Jeez, that's rough there, because not only an extra land there for Ingram, but an incredibly powerful effect.
So the most obvious take here, I think, is Path to Exile, because it deals with Vengevine. So if your plan is to Vengevine relatively soon, then you don't want your opponent to have access to Path. But you can always argue for taking Serum Visions, just so that your opponent doesn't see that many more cards.
So ultimately, Takimura does choose the path and ships it back. Let's see what Ingram has got to work with now. A search for Azcanta. Trigger.
That's a miracle player right there.
Is it off the top of Terminus?
Oh no, I think it's just search for Azcanta.
Oh, no, it's a, okay, there you go, a rest in peace. So he does put that one in the bin, ultimately deciding that the flipping of search for Azcanta is more important. And now...
I mean, rest in peace wouldn't have done that much. And a heads-up play from Takimura. He checked that there was no Wrath coming. He just took his Vengevines back after combat.
So the Vengevines have entered play now, thanks to that hangerback Walker here. Of course, it was cast for 0, so it died straight away, but still was a creature spell. So it brought back the Vengevines. Now Ingram, he's in trouble. He's in trouble because he's taking a huge hit here, and this might be it. He's got a Terminus in hand, but it's going to be instead Cryptic Command to tap the team. And that's the desperation mode, Simon. Tap, draw.
Yeah, but, I mean, it does gain him 14 life here. Draws him a card.
Okay. All right, you sold me. I like that.
He can chain more of these. He can find a Master Removal spell. He always has this out for Terminus.
Needs a Terminus off the top here to really seal the deal. Doesn't find it. Instead, it looks like a search for Azcanta. He's got Field of Ruin in hand. Serum Vision's also another play, but the 6-cost Terminus can't be cast. Doesn't have double white, doesn't have 6 lands. He can't flash back that Cryptic Command just yet. He's going to take a pasting from these creatures. It's a huge attack. What's his way forward here? I don't see a great option for him. He's got to hit something off the Serum Visions at least.
Yeah, and that has to be really, really good, and you have to draw it immediately. Timely reinforcements, like
oh yeah,
Nassif showed us, is the way, of course. Even Baneslayer Angel somehow looks really, really strong against this Vengevine deck.
So Serum Visions, and it has to be something good here for Ingram. I think it was another Serum Visions. 2 cards off the top, Opt and Plains.
So now you can bottom both of these Serum Visions again and hope to top deck.
Or, Simon, Plains bottom, Opt on top. Serum Visions again, draw the Opt, find a Terminus, put it on top, next turn, attack, nuh-uh, buddy. Hallowed Burial time, instant speed, 1 mana. So that's exactly what we're going to see. Doesn't find it. Going to have to blind flip a Terminus next turn here, Simon. Otherwise, he is stone cold dead ski. It all comes down to the top of Ingram's library. Takimura doesn't need to do anything apart from turn his creatures sideways. Does Ingram have a Terminus in the top 2 cards of his library? We know that one is on the bottom. We know that the one is in his hand. He has 2 more copies, and they've got to be, one of them has to be either the top or second top. Here's the attack.
It's about 5%.
He's got to roll a 20. He needs that critical hit. Opt, scry 1. Bottom, this has to be a Terminus or bust, or the Japanese take it out. Is it a Terminus? It's put in the hand. It's not. And for that reason, Takahashi, Takimura, and Fujimura win the day. A straight sets victory just like that. Jund Vengevine avenging the death of its black-red cousin in the previous round, Simon. This deck, I have to say, I think it's here to stay. We're going to see a lot more Vengevine in the coming days and weeks.
Absolutely, no doubt about that. It might even take over from Dredge and Hollow One as the next big graveyard deck of Modern. We will see more Rest in Pieces. We will have to see more Relic of Progenitors. I think that's the only answer.
The thing that perplexes me the most, Simon, as we welcome viewers back to the booth here, Riley Knight, joined by Simon Gertzen, is that this was not a point in the Modern metagame where graveyard decks were on the downswing. This is not a tournament that people come and say, oh, you know what, I'll shave that Rest in Peace. I won't put that Relic in. People came prepared for Hollow One. They came prepared for Mardu. They came prepared for Dredge, what have you. And this Vengevine deck is still getting it done through this graveyard hate.
I think the main difference is how quickly you generate a board, how quickly you get the value from your graveyard. That's so different from Dredge, where if you attack the graveyard within the first few turns, you get that time to fight back. Against this deck, you don't have that amount of time.
We will see how Vengevine fares in the coming rounds, my friends. But right now, we've got to take a break. On the other side of this, it's back to the desk. So stick with us. We'll see you back here in Minneapolis after this.
Fans are the people we want to hear because there are way more fans than there are Wizards employees, for one. And for two, they know what they want to see in this game. And so we have to listen. We are committed to listening to the fans, and we are committed to bringing this experience an experience together that makes sense to the fans.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the desk. Rich and Maria here. Maria, you've got results. What's going on?
All right, I've got some results from CFB here. LSV, PVDDR, and Sigrist won their round. They're now at 5 and 4. However, you might have heard this. Uza, Stark, and Utter Leighton lost to Carvalho, Saporito, and Ramau. They are undefeated no longer, now at 8 and 1. And here's an update. Alan Wu, Ben Hull, and Greg Orange are at 7, 1 and 1. This is a hometown pro tour for Greg Orange as well, and he's on the floor with BDM.
Thanks, Maria. I'm here with the co-host of the Wheelcast, Greg Orange, better known as the Citrus Assassin. Greg, how's this tournament going for you so far?
It's going pretty well. We're starting off 7-1-1.
Where'd that last one come from?
It came from me in the very first round. I played a full game and then cast a memory and shuffled in my hand in graveyard and played another full game. So the first game took like 45 minutes or so.
So if you thought Scheherazade was only going to be available in the Silver Showcase, Greg Orange playing the blue Scheherazade here in Standard. Now, tell me about your teammates here.
All right, playing with Ben Hull, the former Rookie of the Year, and Alan Wu, who used to work for Play Design, and they're doing well. They carried me a few rounds so far in this event. So
how did this team come together? Obviously, this is a hometown PT for you, but how did this group of three come together?
Well, Ben Hull is on our pro team, Hot Sauce Games, and Alan was like, he knew Alan, so that's how we got together.
And then how much time did you guys prepare for this event? Did you prepare together, or did you all prepare in your different lanes?
We all prepared separately since, it's different formats, so there's not a whole lot you can do together as a group, so we just all did our own thing, and it seems to be working out pretty well so far.
Now, we're still waiting for pairings this round, but you guys are doing pretty well. What are your goals here at this PT? What are you hoping for? Obviously, you'd love to win, but what are your personal goals at the end of the season here on the Pro Tour?
Well, if I go 9-4-1, I think that gives me gold again, and obviously winning would be nice too. But that's why I said when we got the draw round one, I'm like, oh, it's because the draw out early, so now we could go 9-4-1 and I could get gold again.
All right, and then Teferi, obviously, we haven't really had a chance to talk to you that much since it's been introduced into Standard, but that card seems like a dream come true for you.
Yeah, it does everything. It draws cards, answers permanents, and wins the game. Like, you don't even need another win condition because you can just keep putting Teferi back in your deck, which is sweet.
All right, well, let you get back to your teammates, get ready for this next round. Greg Orange, X1-1 here at Pro Tour 25th anniversary.
Thanks so much, BDM. Well, it is deck tech time, this time Standard. Paul and Paulo are standing by to tell us all about Reservoir Combo.